Have you ever noticed how the youngest person in the room often speaks the loudest, rushes to prove themselves, desperately seeks validation from everyone around them? They don't observe. They don't wait. They simply react, explain, defend their inexperience with enthusiasm, and they wonder why no one takes them seriously. Now imagine if you understood what they don't. That time isn't your enemy, it's your weapon. That wrinkles aren't signs of decay, but badges of battles survived. That gray hair isn't aging, it's authority made visible. That's where the point lies. When you stop apologizing for your age and start wielding it like the asset it is, everything shifts. The room changes. People lean in differently. Your silence carries more weight than a young person's sermon. Because you've earned something they're still chasing, the clarity that only comes when you've been burned enough times to see the fire before it starts. Niccolò Machiavelli said, "The more sand has escaped from the hourglass of our life, the clearer we should see through it." Think about that. Every year that passes doesn't diminish you. It sharpens you, but only if you stop believing the world's lie that youth equals value and age equals obsolescence. The truth, your age is the one advantage nobody can buy, fake or steal from you. And those who dismiss you for it reveal exactly how much they still have to learn. You have been programmed since birth to fear aging. Every birthday after 30 comes with jokes about being over the hill. Every gray hair is something to hide. Every line on your face is a problem to solve with creams, procedures, filters. Society has built an entire economy on your terror of time passing. But here's a truth that perhaps no one has told you with this clarity. This fear of aging is not natural. It is manufactured, and it serves a very specific purpose: to keep you desperate, insecure, and constantly seeking external validation. Do you know why youth is so celebrated in modern culture? Not because young people are wiser, more capable, or more valuable. It's because they're more controllable. They don't yet know who they are. They're still figuring out their boundaries, still eager to please, still willing to work twice as hard for half the respect. They haven't yet learned to say no. They haven't developed the internal compass that comes only from making mistakes and surviving them. They are, in Machiavelli's terms, easier to manipulate. But you who have lived through decades of experience, who have been betrayed and learned to spot deception, who have failed and discovered resilience, who have loved and lost and understood the patterns, you are dangerous. Not in a violent way, but in a way that threatens every system built on exploiting naivety. Your age means you can't be sold the same dream twice. You've already bought it, lived it, and returned it for a refund. Carl Jung spoke about the persona, the mask we wear to be accepted by society, and nowhere is this mask heavier than in how we present our age. You dye your hair, you lie about your birth year. You dress younger than you are. You laugh at jokes about being old even when they sting. Why? Because you are trapped in an illusion that being young is a prerequisite for being relevant. But it doesn't work that way. The more you apologize for your age, the more you hand away the very power it gives you. Being older means you've lived through economic crashes and recovered. You've seen leaders rise and fall. You've watched trends cycle through and return. You've experienced enough human behavior to predict patterns before they fully form. This isn't theory. It's data. Your life is a database that young people are still building, row by painful row. And yet you're standing there, apologizing for having the complete set. Here's what Machiavelli understood that most people miss. Power isn't about physical strength or youthful energy. It's about knowing when to act and when to wait. It's about reading people faster than they can deceive you. It's about having the patience to let fools reveal themselves instead of rushing to prove them wrong. And all of it, requires time. You can't shortcut wisdom. You can't download experience. Age is the only currency that can't be counterfeited. But the cruelest joke is this. Society makes you believe your value decreases with age precisely when it's actually increasing. Every wrinkle is a lesson learned. Every gray hair is a crisis navigated. Every year you've survived is proof you know how to survive. You are literally more equipped, more knowledgeable, more resilient than you've ever been. And yet you walk around like you need to apologize for it. If this content is making sense to you, click the subscribe button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your support. Now let's talk about what Machiavelli called virtù, not virtue in the moral sense, but capability, effectiveness, the ability to shape circumstances to your will. In The Prince, he wrote extensively about how leaders maintain power not through idealism, but through understanding human nature at its rawest. And here's what he knew. Young leaders fail because they trust too much, react too quickly, and believe the world operates on fairness. Older leaders survive because they've been disillusioned. They know the world is cruel, people are self-interested, and trust must be earned slowly and revoked quickly. Think about the leaders you actually respect. Not the ones social media tells you to admire, but the ones whose presence commands attention without demanding it. Chances are they're not 25. They're seasoned. They've made mistakes publicly, recovered quietly, and emerged with a kind of calm authority that cannot be faked. This is what age gives you that youth cannot manufacture. The ability to remain unmoved when everyone else is panicking. The capacity to see 3 moves ahead because you've played this game before. The discernment to know which battles matter and which ones are just noise designed to drain your energy. Machiavelli observed that fortune favors the bold, but he also knew that boldness without wisdom is just recklessness wearing a confident mask. Youth has boldness in abundance. They'll leap before looking, charge into situations with admirable courage and zero strategy. But you've learned that real boldness isn't about moving fast, it's about moving right. It's about knowing when to advance and when to hold position, when to speak and when silence will accomplish more, when to engage and when walking away is the power move. This calculated approach isn't hesitation, it's intelligence, and it terrifies people who mistake your patience for weakness. They're waiting for you to react like you used to defend yourself, to engage in their chaos. But you don't. Because somewhere along the way, through years of getting it wrong and finally getting it right, you learned that not every provocation deserves a response. Not every criticism requires a defense. Not every invitation needs acceptance. This is what Jung meant by integrating the shadow. You've faced your own reactivity, your own need for validation, your own people-pleasing tendencies, and you've made peace with the uncomfortable truth that you can't control what others think. You can only control what you do. And that realization is liberating in ways younger people can't yet comprehend. Your age has taught you to spot manipulation before it fully forms. You've seen the pattern enough times, the flattery that comes with an agenda, the sudden friendship that needs a favor, the person who only calls when they need something. A 25-year-old still thinks these people might be genuine. You know better. You've paid the tuition in wasted time and broken trust. Now you have the degree. This is psychic energy conservation at its finest, and Jung would recognize it immediately. Every time a younger version of you wasted energy on toxic people, dramatic relationships, pointless arguments, or proving yourself to those who didn't matter, that was energy hemorrhaging. But now you know where your energy goes. You're selective, strategic, unmoved by provocations that would have destroyed your peace a decade ago. This isn't coldness. This is mastery. Machiavelli observed that men in general judge more by their eyes than by their hands, for all can see but few can feel. Translation: people judge by appearance, not substance. They see your age and make assumptions. They see gray hair and think past your prime. They see 50, 60, 70 and imagine decline. But those who can feel Those who can sense depth, competence, earned authority, they know better. They know you're the one to watch, not the loudest voice in the room. And here's the twist that younger people never expect. You stop caring about their judgment. Not because you're arrogant, but because you finally internalized that their opinion doesn't pay your bills, raise your children, or live your life. Jung called this individuation, the process of becoming who you actually are instead of who others need you to be. And it happens in the second half of life, not the first. The first half is about building the ego, establishing yourself, collecting achievements and identities. The second half is about releasing what doesn't serve you and crystallizing into your essence. This is why older people seem difficult or set in their ways to younger observers. It's not stubbornness, it's clarity. You're no longer willing to waste time on people, places, and pursuits that drain you. You've finally learned the lesson that took decades to sink in. Your time is finite, and every yes to something meaningless is a no to something meaningful. That's not difficulty, that's wisdom, that's Machiavellian efficiency applied to your own existence. But let's address the elephant in the room, the fear. The fear that you've missed your window, that the best years are behind you, that you're too old to start over, reinvent yourself, pursue that dream you shelved decades ago. This fear whispers late at night, it's too late for you. And this is where most people surrender. They accept the narrative that life peaks at 30 and it's downhill from there. They settle, they coast, they wait for retirement like it's a finish line instead of another beginning. But here's what that fear doesn't tell you. Some of history's most powerful figures were just getting started at the age you're afraid has ended you. Machiavelli wrote The Prince at 44, after political exile and torture. Jung's most profound work came after 40, when he underwent his own psychological crisis and emerged transformed. Ray Kroc was 52 when he founded McDonald's. Vera Wang entered the fashion industry at 40. Colonel Sanders was 62 when he started KFC. These aren't exceptions. They're evidence that the story you've been told about age is fiction designed to keep you small. The truth is, you needed those decades to become who you are now. You needed the failures to build resilience. You needed the betrayals to sharpen your discernment. You needed the losses to understand what actually matters. Every detour, every setback, every year you thought was wasted was actually construction. You weren't falling behind. You were being forged. And now you're ready in ways your younger self never could have been, because now you have something more valuable than time. You have clarity born from experience. This is what Machiavelli understood about power that most people miss. It's not about age or youth. It's about whether you've learned the lessons life was teaching you or whether you kept making the same mistakes in different packaging. Some people are 50 and still haven't learned. Others are 35 and carry wisdom that took lifetimes to accumulate. Age alone doesn't guarantee wisdom, but age with awareness, age with reflection, age with the courage to look at yourself honestly and change what needs changing, that creates something unbeatable. But Machiavelli would call this cowardice. He believed fortune, fate, circumstances, controls only half of our lives. The other half is determined by our actions, our will, our refusal to accept defeat. Your age doesn't close doors. Your belief that it does closes doors. The difference is crucial. One is fact, the other is story, and you've been living someone else's story about aging instead of writing your own. Let me tell you what actually happens when you embrace your age instead of fighting it. First, you stop seeking permission. You stop waiting for someone younger, prettier, more connected to validate your worth. You recognize that you've earned your seat at any table you choose to approach. Not through arrogance, but through decades of showing up, learning, adapting, surviving. You carry your credentials in your eyes, the eyes of someone who has seen enough to not be easily fooled. Second, you become economical with your presence. Not everyone deserves access to you. Your time, attention, and energy are premium goods now, and you stopped giving them away like free samples. When you do show up, people notice. Not because you're loud, but because you're intentional. Your silence has gravity. Your words, when you choose to speak them, land differently. This is what Machiavelli meant when he wrote about being feared versus being loved. Older people who own their authority don't need to be liked. They command respect through competence, not charm. Third, you stop explaining yourself. This is the superpower nobody tells you about aging. You reach a point where you no longer feel compelled to justify your choices, defend your decisions, or convince others of your worth. You want to travel alone? Do it. Start a business at $60? Do it. End a 30-year relationship? Do it. And when people ask why, you smile and say, because I decided to. That's it. No dissertation. No apology. Just sovereign choice backed by decades of learning to trust yourself. But here's where it gets uncomfortable, and this is where many people retreat. When you start wielding your age as power, you will be called intimidating, difficult, unapproachable, past your prime, cold, bitter. These are not insults. They are projections. Young people say these things when they're uncomfortable with your refusal to play small. Insecure people say these things when your confidence reminds them of their own self-doubt. Mediocre people say these things when your standards expose their lack of standards. Machiavelli was called cruel for telling the truth about power. Jung was called mystical for revealing uncomfortable truths about the psyche. You will be called something too when you refuse to shrink. The question is, will you let their discomfort control you, or will you continue walking in your power? If you're in the process of reclaiming your age as an asset and stepping into mature authority, you'll find real value in my book, Beyond the Shadow. It breaks down the most important psychological ideas around identity, power, and transformation. Link is in the pinned comment. The final stage of this transformation is the hardest because it requires you to let go of who you thought you'd be by now. The dream career that never materialized. The relationship that didn't last. The body that doesn't look like it used to. The life that turned out differently than planned. Most people get stuck here, mourning the gap between expectation and reality. But this is where Machiavelli's real wisdom emerges. He wrote, "Where the willingness is great, the difficulties cannot be great." He wasn't talking about positive thinking or manifesting. He was talking about accepting reality as it is and working from there, not from where you wish you were. Your life didn't turn out the way you planned. Good. Plans are made by young people who don't yet understand how the world works. Reality is written by time, circumstance, and your response to both. And your response, right now, determines everything that comes next. There's a particular kind of grief that comes with aging, and nobody warns you about it. It's not just about physical changes or missed opportunities. It's about watching your former self disappear, that person who believed certain things would happen, who held certain dreams as non-negotiable, who thought life would unfold according to a script. That person is gone. And you need to grieve them properly, not because they failed, but because they were a necessary stage you had to pass through to become who you are now. Jung spoke about this as the death and rebirth cycle that happens throughout life, not just once. Every decade, every major transition, parts of you die so new parts can emerge. But our culture doesn't prepare you for this. It tells you to stay young, to never change, to be consistent. But consistency is stagnation. Change is growth. And every year you survive is proof you know how to die and resurrect yourself. That's not weakness. That's mastery over the one thing most people fear more than death itself. Transformation. So when you look in the mirror and don't recognize the person staring back, that's not loss. That's evidence of evolution. The face looking back at you has earned every line, every mark, every sign of time passing. And if you can make peace with that, if you can stop fighting the mirror and start respecting what it shows you, you unlock something most people never find. The ability to be exactly who you are without apology, without explanation, without the exhausting performance of trying to be who you used to be. You're not starting over. You're beginning from a place of depth, experience, and hard-won wisdom. That's not a disadvantage. It's the ultimate advantage. Every failure taught you what doesn't work. Every betrayal taught you who to avoid. Every loss taught you what actually matters. You're not building a life from scratch. You're building a life from substance. There's a difference, and it shows in everything you create moving forward. The people who thrive in the second half of life are not the ones who fought aging the hardest. They're the ones who weaponized it. They looked at their years and saw ammunition, not expiration dates. They looked at their scars and saw credentials, not shame. They looked at their age and saw authority earned through fire. Jung said, "The afternoon of life is just as full of meaning as the morning, only its meaning and purpose are different." Stop trying to recreate your 20s. Stop apologizing for not being 30 anymore. That chapter closed, and it should have closed. You extracted every lesson from it. Now you're in a different book entirely, one that requires mature understanding, not youthful enthusiasm. And this book? This one you actually know how to read. Now tell me in the comments. Are you ready to stop apologizing for your age and start using it as the weapon it is? Are you ready to own every year, every scar, every lesson as proof of your qualification to lead your own life? If this message resonated with something deep inside you, write in the comments, "Time sharpens me." Let's see how many here understand that age is power. Today, we learned from Machiavelli that wisdom isn't soft. It's earned through years of experience, observation, and survival. And from Jung, we learned that the second half of life is where true individuation occurs, where we become who we actually are instead of who we thought we should be. Your age isn't your decline. It's your credentials made visible. If these insights sparked a moment of clarity for you, hit the like button to share this wisdom with others who need to hear it. Subscribe to join our community, where we dive deeper into life-changing ideas every week. Ideas that transform how we see ourselves and the world. We're building something here, a space for those who refuse to live on autopilot, who question the narratives they've been sold, who choose growth over comfort. And don't forget, keep watching the next video. We're going deeper into the psychology of power, silence, and the art of becoming unforgettable. Until we meet again, carry these insights forward. Let Machiavelli's wisdom remind you. The sand that has fallen through your hourglass didn't disappear. It became the foundation you now stand on. May you find our talks not only educational, but also inspirational, and hopefully, ultimately, transformational. See you next time.